Okay, hello everybody. This is Dr. Annette Feravich here with you from healthymindbodyspirit.net. I sometimes have a slow internet here. I wish that I could tell you something different, but I can't. So someday, hopefully, I will be able to get that problem solved, but not at this moment. Okay. Hopefully you all had a wonderful Thanksgiving, and I did too. And hopefully you got to spend it with wonderful family and friends. I had a wonderful Thanksgiving. I got to see my son and my other son, my older son, who is living in Pennsylvania now, met with me on Zoom. And even though we all know that maybe that's not the most optimum way to meet one another or to be intimate with one another, it really does work pretty well. So I'm so happy and so grateful that I got to see my sons. So this is our first Thanksgiving without, this is their first Thanksgiving without their dad. And I think that this is a good topic for us to be talking about, gratefulness. Let me get just a little bit set up here, just a little bit better here. So. There we go. I think that's a little bit better. Let's see here. Don't want the microphone taking over my whole entire face. Okay, all right. So someday we might be able to get this up and running on time, and that's what I'm hoping for. But one of the things I'm extremely grateful for is I'm extremely grateful that I am moving along in a real positive way with this business. And so I hope that you continue to join me. This is Dr. Annette Feravich with Healthy Mind, Body, Spirit. And as you can see, you can find me on the internet at www.healthymindbodyspirit.net. Again, I hope that you had a wonderful Thanksgiving, as I did as well. And just a little bit of time to reflect then on Thanksgiving and a little bit more on really sort of the powers of being grateful. And is there really a power in that? So let's just take a look at what we've got here. The first thing I want to talk to you about is what are our sales, because it's Black Friday, right? And so for you, I want to be able to give you guys a little bit of information on what's going on with Shaklee. Remember that this business is not... Remember that my business is simply not just about therapy. It's not just about psychology, but you can see that I really bring you some things that I think are interesting and very valuable relative to very good mental health. These series about mental health are brought to you by somebody who has a lot of knowledge in mental health. I've been working in the mental health care industry and in psychology and teaching psychology for about 15 years, for over 15 years. And so there's a lot of things that I have learned about teaching psychology that a lot of people simply don't have the same kind of knowledge or information when they are simply a clinical psychologist. So let me just explain to you just a little bit about that without turning me off. When individuals get their degree in mental health, very often what they do is they specialize in a particular area for mental health treatment. So individuals might specialize in marriage and family. Some individuals might specialize in suicidal ideations. Other individuals might specialize in behavioral problems, emotional difficulties, individuals who have ADD or ADHD. And what they become is the expert in that area. But what I found is that very often when individuals really need specific help, very often it's difficult to pinpoint what exactly is that help that they need. And even when we have got things like the Diagnostic Statistical Manual, which helps clinical psychologists determine diagnoses and symptoms for some of the mental illnesses that we have, even when we look at those, very often those things don't give us the complete picture either. Nobody is able to really fit nice and neatly in a box. It's one of the reasons why the mental health manual, which is a diagnostic statistical manual, why it has things like spectrums now. So a spectrum for autism. Why? Because individuals don't fit into these neat little boxes, right? So, in this way, we really need to be taking a look at our health in the bigger picture. We know things like food can bother our stomachs, and in bothering our, especially the way that they process food now, right? And this is one of the big reasons why we have epidemics of obesity. And also you should know that that is a comorbidity for COVID-19 and a large comorbidity with it. What is that? It means it co-occurs with COVID-19 very often. So we know that there are vulnerable populations for COVID-19, and we also know, however, that there are some answers to some of this vulnerability so that we can make ourselves become less vulnerable to the virus, especially when we continue to get these new variants. What we're finding out is really we want to depend on ourselves to be able to be healthy and also to be knowledgeable and in our mental and physical well-being, in our mental and physical health. Okay, all right, so I want to give you, as you know, information not only about mental health in this unique way that you are getting a full series of 8 episodes in this case on depression and behavior. So this gives you several answers that go well beyond a simple pharmaceutical answer. Although we know that many of us are really looking for easy answers, including me, we do realize that a lot of times those easy answers are not sufficient in that they really don't get to the core of the problem. And what we end up seeing from many therapists is a return of those same problems. And really what I really encourage you to do is check out my therapy at my website, www.healthymindbodyspirit.net. Check out my therapy and see why it's different. What I do offer individuals is some relief immediately. Not long-term, not a long-term plan, but relief immediately. And so take a look at the differences in my mental health. But part of the difference is that I also make sure that I am addressing your nutrition, so your physical health, as well as your spiritual health. So please visit me and see what this is all about. In particular, as we go into this holiday season, we know that individuals are really suffering. So see what this therapy has to offer you that's far different than any other therapy you've been to. Okay. Put my flowers closer to me because they're so pretty. Okay, sometimes getting adjusted takes a while, which I don't like the way I just did any of it. Okay, all right, moving on. So today we are talking about gratitude in honor of this Thanksgiving weekend. Let's talk a little bit about what can gratitude do for us and why is it important that we spend some time cultivating gratitude. Why is it important that we cultivate gratitude? Gratitude can very often come automatically, right? So somebody does something for us and we feel thankful or grateful immediately for them doing that for us. However, what we also want to know is or understand is that many of these behaviors that we engage in, because they are so beneficial, we want to engage in them purposefully. So that's what we're trying to do. We're talking about how to get out of feelings of depression by engaging in purposeful behaviors. And today it's gratitude. So just a little bit of a background. Why do we celebrate Thanksgiving? Well, as you know, in 1642, when we settled this land, it was very rough for us in the beginning, and we didn't know how to hunt. We didn't know a lot about the vegetation, and we weren't really acclimated to the very cruel winters that we had. And so as we were getting acclimated to all of this, there were Indians, so Native Americans, who were part of this land and who had settled the land, who after our very first winter, or after actually our very first winter, and then coming in after the harvest, what they did was they gathered both the American Indians and the Pilgrims together, and I'm not sure exactly if it was at Plymouth Rock, because that's debatable and it doesn't really matter. But what they did was they shared their food, they shared their culture, and they shared their knowledge with us at that very first Thanksgiving. So we had a lot to be thankful for. Additionally, because they were so selfless and sharing so many of the things, that really was one of the reasons why we were able to help to succeed. One of the things that we also want to kind of note here with this Thanksgiving holiday is that it is a feast that we celebrate very often after the harvest. And so this is a celebration that just isn't a celebration that we do here in the United States as far as a celebration after the harvest. But this is done in many different cultures as well as many different religions as well. And so after we end up harvesting all of those things that we worked all summer to grow, what we want to do is give thanks for the wonderful harvest. So one way or another, whether we look at Thanksgiving as an American tradition or whether or not we just look at it as a tradition that really brings about great health, well-being, and intimacy, that's a good reason then to engage in it. Okay, let's go. Let's get started. All right, a couple sales that are going on right now, a couple Black Friday sales that I want to share with you. The very first Black Friday sale I want to share with you here, let's make this a little smaller. Is this Black Friday sale that we have for people who are already members of Shackley. And so if you are a member of Shackley, what you get is $20 off your purchase of $100 or more. That ends tomorrow night on November 29th. So make sure that you get your orders in for that $20 off of your order of $100 or more. Use the promo code CYBER20. For those of you who are not currently members, get to be a member. What does membership offer you? Membership offers you 15% off of all of your purchases when you become a member. Now, let me explain to you one of the reasons why being a member of Shackley is so beneficial to you and why I encourage individuals to use Shackley. First of all, Shackley's motto is, one of their mottos is that they will never put anything in your body that would harm a single cell. And because of this, you can first of all trust that they stand behind and guarantee all of their supplements and all of their products. They also have wonderful cleaning products, and they also have wonderful beauty products. So they stand behind all of their products. You can also find tremendous research, 3 to 4 times at least the amount of research that anyone does on any of their supplement products. In addition, you can be sure that they are lead-free, arsenic-free. Many organic claims that are made on protein drinks actually have many of these substances in there, because you can make a claim to be organic with one ingredient, and still have several other ingredients there that are not organic. This is not the way that Shaklee works. You can also have this wonderful supplement and cleaning products that takes care of viruses and cleans without leaving an environmental footprint. In fact, it's not only that they don't leave an environmental footprint, it actually is that they, in their products, are learning to give back to the land, right? So that it actually is beneficial to the land in their dryer sheets or in their cleaning products. And again, the final thing is that you can get these products sent right to your door. So you don't have to worry about going and impulsively buying things that you haven't researched and that you don't know whether or not it's a great product. You will always know that Shaklee stands behind their products, 100% guarantee. You can look things up. There's always valuable research on their products. And if you're a new member, what you end up getting is a free protein drink here is what you see. So a pumpkin spice flavored protein drink. This provides 14 servings, and it's a $57 value. So you can get this free with your first order of $100 or more. And this, you use promo code CHEERS. Okay, all right. So that's our Shaklee Black Friday deals. So make sure that you take advantage of those deals as well, and keep your eyeballs open for more specials, because we always have monthly specials. Please also visit my website, because my website has those Black Friday deals as well as a link to all Shaklee products and all Shaklee deals. It also talks to you about my mental health and what's available for mental health, where you can schedule an appointment. And that, again, is at www.healthymindbodyspirit.net. You can also email me with your questions at Dr. Feravich, F as in Frank, ERA, V as in Victor, ICH, at healthymindbodyspirit.net. So email me your questions, your concerns, and I will get to them. Or also make an appointment if you would like. You get a free consultation for mental health. So let me know. Okay. Now let's get started with our gratitude presentation. So as you can see, the subtitle here is Finding Ways to Unify One Another. And that's really what gratitude does. It brings people together. A lot of times I think about what occurs often in the midst of great tragedy, right? What occurs often in the midst of great tragedy? Well, I think about 9/11, for example, and still have very vivid memories of how naturally concerned and afraid Americans were for other Americans, and how individuals came together with great gratitude that others were there to help, and that others were there who understood, and others were there who were in our corner. And so this was really beneficial for us. So I see things that can sometimes be sad, bring about great sadness, that sometimes can be attributed to great tragedy. and it has this effect of bringing us together. But if we want it to bring us together, often what we have to do is make some real conscious efforts that to get involved and to get engaged, right? Things like 9/11 and the tragedy of 9/11 brought us together because people got engaged with one another. Now, what's occurring, we see great divisiveness. And so, what is missing there that has to do with our topic when we see this great divisiveness? What is missing there? Well, likely a real appreciation for what others can bring to my life. Um, and those other individuals can be people of other faiths, people of other races, people who live in other geographic areas, people of other gender, other denominations, other demographics, right? It's learning to have an appreciation for those things, and in having an appreciation for those differences that we have, we learn to unify ourselves. And in those differences and in unifying ourselves with one another, what we end up doing is building greater empathy, but also greater knowledge, right? Greater knowledge and understanding for individuals who aren't always exactly the same as we are. Okay, hold on one second because I am going to need to take just a minute. So let's just take a quick look at. We're gonna take a quick look at what is gratitude, because that's what we always want to do. Is when we first start looking at our concepts, the very first thing we like to do is try and define our concepts. So, what is gratitude? So here are a few key points for defining gratitude. So first of all, gratitude can be thought of as an emotion. We can certainly feel it, but it's also many other things. And this comes from Emmons, and Emmons is a foremost researcher in the area of gratitude. So, an emotion, a virtue, a moral sentiment, a motive. It motivates us, right? It's a coping response. All right, so a coping response. So when things go bad, what do? One of the things we can do is we can count our blessings. And in fact, we know that counting our blessings leads to great outcomes as well. Okay, it's so therefore, if it's a coping response and I can learn this coping response, I can refine this coping response, then that means it's also a skill as well. And then also can be thought of as an attitude. But as we can see, even though, it's an attitude, we also said a moral sentiment, which can be also thought of as an attitude. There is this kind of recognition that there is goodness or badness that goes along with it. So it's value laden. We have a value. We value people who are grateful. We value those people who don't take advantage, right? Or who are, we don't value people who are ungrateful, who don't appreciate those things that other people do, or don't appreciate the beauty in life, or don't appreciate where they are in life. And that really can occur no matter what, right? So we can have negative feelings towards individuals who are ungrateful, even when those individuals have a good reason to be ungrateful, right? Or at least a good reason to be negative or feeling sad, right? But when you think about it, most of us actually, even when you're feeling down and out, don't want to hear people talk in ways that are unappreciative, in ways that suggest that I'm somehow deserving, right? And so that's an interesting concept to think about and mull over a little bit. Are you the person who, in whatever ways, are ungrateful? Do you have a tendency to mull over all of those things that go wrong? Do you have a tendency to believe that those things that go wrong always happen to you? That when things go wrong, this always happens to you, right? And that somehow you are deserving of a better lot in life, okay? So when we hear those kinds of things, think about it. People who are unappreciative, who have wonderful things but always want more. To people, I went and I'm looking up right now. I was bringing up some of these synonyms, right? So to people who don't acknowledge synonyms, and now antonyms I'm using, in case you're wondering the difference. So people who don't acknowledge that something good has happened to them, right? They don't even acknowledge that you've done something nice for them, okay? They don't appreciate what they have. They don't see blessings in their lives where individuals have blessings. They don't praise things or recognize that certain things should be praised, right? So they don't praise, they praise wonderful things that have happened in their lives. They tend to be unresponsive to good things, okay? Yeah, and unthankful. None of us are drawn to those kinds of people no matter what their lot in life is. So they may have reasons to be sad, but do you think that people have reasons to be unthankful? And do you think that that we have this drive then to be thankful, since it is so adverse, since it is so unflattering when individuals are unthankful or unappreciative, when that is so unflattering, that we have this natural inclination then to see things more, this natural inclination to want to see things as being blessings, right? As being over and above. Well, let's take a look at some of those definitions so we could see what we want to see things as, right? I hope that's better. Okay. Okay, so we can see how gratitude, being grateful, can be many of those things. Also, I have there that it is worldly and transcendent. Worldly in the way that we can see that as we go throughout our day, there are reasons why we would say thank you, right? It's worldly. It is polite. It's politically correct. If you were taught your manners, as my boys were when they were young, one of the manners was to say please and thank you. And so that is a worldly thing, that there are people who go out of their way for other individuals, and in going those out of their way, we end up reaping benefits that are undeserving. Okay, so that's part of the definition of as well, that we are grateful when we reap benefits for those things that we are undeserving of. Okay? And so that's what makes it worldly. Each one of us have got some things that we have been the recipient of, that we could call blessings. We can call that, some people call it grace. Some people call it we're the recipients of good fortune or luck. Those things could be more worldly. But there's also a transcendent kind of thing about this as well, where we believe that good begets good, right? So when I am good to somebody else, we see what is called this upward spiral, is what we call it in positive psychology, where the benefits are exponential. We can also call it paying it forward, is another thing that we have used, another term that we have used for this sort of transcendent kind of look at, or transcendent feel for gratitude. Okay, and then we see there that there are two stages of gratitude. And if we take a look at breaking this down into these stages, and actually breaking this concept down a little bit, what we can do is maybe make more conscious efforts to notice times when we will be grateful or can be grateful, but then also actively engage in refining this so that it is a good coping skill that we've developed, or it is a skill, or it even is an attitude that we have refined that is to our benefit. All right, so that's what we're doing. We're kind of breaking this concept of gratitude down in ways that we can systematically approach being more grateful about things. Why? Why do we systematically want to approach being more grateful? Because we see that there is a benefit. That's why. Okay, all right. So we saw that there are two stages then. The first stage is acknowledgement. So we need to acknowledge what we need to acknowledge. And so this is an easy skill to refine, because what are we acknowledging? Well, we might be acknowledging another person, right? Often we can be grateful for other people who have gone out of their way for us when we may not have been deserving, right? And that doesn't mean because we're a criminal, right? Or that doesn't mean because we're a bad person. It just means that I didn't do anything to deserve what you did for me, right? We had a lot of things that occurred after my husband passed that we were very grateful for, that this family was very grateful for. And one of the things was our neighbors. Our neighbors actually cooked all the food for the service, if you can believe that. And they had no reason to do that. They had no reason. That I had never done anything for my neighbors that would warrant them doing that for me. But they did. I mean, there are that's not what I want to do. There are, lots of reasons why it may have been easier for my neighbors to have done this, right? Their son teaches at Schoolcraft, and he is an assistant sous chef, right? I'm not getting that right, but I didn't plan to say this either, so I'm like kind of going by the seat of my pants here. Anyway, so there are reasons. All I'm saying is somebody who is less grateful, who wasn't necessarily all about saying that it's counting your blessings that makes a difference, might be skeptical about their graciousness, right? They would be skeptical about their graciousness. But another person who has practiced or refined these skills acknowledges, first of all, that was something they didn't have to do. I never did anything to warrant them doing that for me. And then the second part, so the very first step is acknowledging, and then the second part is recognizing that this is goodness that we've received that came from outside of ourselves. Okay? And this is another important component. Now, sometimes we can be, we're not to say all the time we're grateful and we're not responsible for that, right? Sometimes we make good choices. But again, even when I make good choices, I really always have somebody to thank. And I've always recognize that. It's important to recognize that I have people to thank. There's a lot of people who think that they make their own way in this world. And it's not that we can't contribute to that, or that we shouldn't contribute to that, or that we shouldn't be motivated to contribute to that. Of course, we should be motivated and contribute to our success. But when you think about it, really, when I think about it, what I think is, nothing I'm going to be able to do about all those lights beaming off of my forehead. Okay, but when I think about being grateful and having talents, and I'm blessed with talents. I really am blessed with talents. I'm able to go on a show and I could, we'll see, but speak clearly enough great editing, but that's another skill, right? That's another skill I have. I can edit. So even when I'm stumbling over my words, I can make myself look better. I am a professor at a university. So I have many skills. And it's a perfect time for individuals to believe then that they are the result of their own doing, right? That I am the result of my own doing. And sure, if you want, if you want to go through life and think about that, I think that that's that is your prerogative for sure. But the way that I like to think about it is this: I like to think that, and I've not that I like to think about it, I've just always thought about it this way: is that first of all, what do I really have? What do I have? Well, I've got my intellect. That's great, right? That's great. So I've got my intellect. But really, I mean, if anything is really hardwired, not everything is, but height is, eye color is more hardwired than not, right? Those things. Intellect is fairly hardwired. So I have genes, but then there's also the environment as well. So the environmental part, right? I had I can't say grade schools because I certainly didn't go to great schools, although Wayne State I think was a great school. But elementary school and growing up, things like that did not prepare me to go to college. So I didn't have that in my background. And so I could say, right? I could say, well, that was my will. My parents didn't teach me, right, to go to college because they didn't know enough about it to encourage me. I was the first in the entire Garcia family, extended family as well, to go to college. And of course then the first to get my PhD. So this was, so I didn't learn that, but it certainly wasn't that I was necessarily PhD material genetically either. Although both my mom and dad were very smart, they weren't necessarily educated, right? Because they didn't go to college. So there's a lot there for me to be thankful for, right? Because there's a lot of genetic material that I got, and there's a lot of environmental material that I got, none of which was my own doing. Additionally, and I've said this, said this in last week's video, episode number 5, that anything that I have, that I gain, is gained from outside of myself. And so if I want to improve myself, I might read a book, or I might watch a video, or I might listen to somebody, my aunt who knows a lot about this, or I might, go visit a business and find out an expert in this, right? But what I did in each occasion was I went outside of myself in order to get this, right? So real gratitude is a recognition that really so much of ourselves come from from things that are outside of ourselves, right? So much of who we are comes from our environment, or even our genes, which we are not responsible for either, right? So that was one of the things that I have always said about being grateful and not being so, really honestly arrogant about the things that you have, because another thing is that they could be wiped out in a moment, right? What about the fact that I also have been blessed with circumstances where, where I didn't get in an accident, right? Being careless on the road, or somebody else being careless on the road, and then, or anything. This can happen in so many ways. I was, we were up north skiing, and we went tobogganing, and it was pure ice, and we went, we went to go, we went down the hill, and then you go back up, and then and then you come back down again, right, like this, and then you kind of slow down like that. Well, as we were going up, somebody else was coming down with their foot and smashed me right in the head, and I was dizzy for a long time with seeing double for a long time. So that could be something. I mean, just accidents that happen that could change your intellect. So even those kinds of things that you think are so hardwired in you, we have reason to be thankful for those things too. So again, those two stages of gratitude include acknowledgement that there is something that was unearned by me that I'm getting, right? So it wasn't a job I did, right? It was beyond that. Or, yeah, and it's not that you can't be grateful for a job or somebody can't be grateful around there, but it's not that kind of exchange, right? So there's an acknowledgement that there was something that was unearned there, and that something came from outside of myself. Step 2. Now, what I want to do is I want to talk to you about some of the ways that you can, some of the things you can engage in that would lead you to greater gratitude. All right, so greater feelings of gratitude. All right, so here we have the word savoring, which I've talked to you about in the past. So savoring really is an intentional behavior where you spend time thinking about. Usually we think about it in terms of a very specific event. So you are taking some time to think about a very specific event that you enjoyed, that was pleasurable. So that's savoring. But it's a great way to also develop a sense of gratitude, of course, as well. If we spend time savoring, event after event, positive event after positive event in particular, versus ruminating about negative events, right? Because think about the amount of time then that you're changing into something beneficial for you. If you are a person who habitually goes to negative thoughts, and ruminators will not fill their heads with positive thoughts, then this would be a way to change really a tremendous aspect of your attitude and your life, simply by spending more time thinking positive thoughts. Now, if you recall, I shared these steps with you in the past already when we were talking about some of the behaviors that we can engage in that can alleviate depression. And I don't have any problem repeating myself because some of those videos get long, and hopefully you'll end up catching some of this valuable information one way or another. So you'll recognize that as a way of changing our behaviors, right, in general. So the very first point that I have there is to be kind. Okay, sorry about that. I had to get my notes up there. All right, so the very first thing that we see there is to be kind and help. All right, and so these are some of the behaviors that are associated with positive thinking and also gratitude. So when we are kind to one another, this actually is, it feeds it both ways, right? This is a relationship that goes both ways. So when we are kind to one another, we create opportunities for gratitude, right? We are giving individuals unearned kindness, okay? So giving them, therefore, a reason to be grateful, okay? And so that goes both ways, right? So then you, by giving your kindness, it goes towards the other person, and in return, what you end up getting is gratitude, which is also, a form of kindness. So this is a wonderful enhancing of a relationship by being kind. And we also know that in conjunction with all this, one of the reasons why we end up getting these upward spirals, one of the reasons why the benefit is exponential is because it increases our desires to help other people as well. And when this increases our desire to help other people, again, we begin to create this wonderful cycle of gratitude and kindness, acknowledgement, and helping. Okay, all right. So that's number one. Number two, then, there is to savor the moment. So this was information that I gave you that was how to get out of the hedonic treadmill, which is basically recognizing opportunities to savor and be grateful, is what it is. Okay, so this point number two that we have here is savoring. And how do we savor? What are the strategies that you can engage in that will help you better savor? Well, the first one there says, the first one says duration. And so what this is that what you want to do is you want to set aside time, as I've said before. So make a plan for you to savor an event. In particular, if you know that this event is coming up, then maybe a good idea for you would be to, in planning the event, in anticipation of the upcoming event, what you end up doing is also planning for the moment that you'll savor the event and how you'll savor the event as well. So if you have an upcoming date, for example, or if you have an upcoming, even something like a ball game that you're going to, okay? So you're planning for the event, and in the week of planning for the event, what do? You plan for how and when you're going to savor. What does this do? This increases dopamine, is what it increases in your brain. This increases that wonderful butterflies in the stomach or excitement or whatever that is that you feel prior to the event. And what that does is that attaches you to it attaches your behavior to the event. So your behavior is attached to your rewards, and that is what continues to build feelings of anticipation before you get the reward. You know what's coming, and you know what's coming because you've learned about what's coming. Okay, I think that's better. I think that's even better. Okay. All right. So, duration. And so, planning this event out, and the idea here is setting aside the appropriate amount of time, is what you're looking at. Number two, complexity. Complexity is looking, it's like, it's actually like a meditation that we do, okay? It's looking at the details of, for example, a painting, some kind of intricate sculpture, or a weave, or a like a weave in a material, right? Looking at an intricate design in some way. All right. So that is a in that way that you think about that, looking at that intricate design. That's how you want to, that's sort of the mechanics of what you want to do when you go through savoring. Those are the mechanics of it. Think about every detail of it. It's really an interesting thing. Let me tell you something about my students do this exercise. And I'm going to tell you something interesting about what I find with my students doing this exercise. As soon as I play more with this. That's better. Is that when they are savoring this, as they are savoring, what they end up doing is played with that microphone and I just totally lost that thought. I'm gonna have to think about what that was. No, not going to come to me. But I will say this about complexity. What that does is it helps you really gain a really great control of your mind is what it does. So you become sort of the the director of your thoughts. And when you are able to purposefully direct your thoughts, you then are purposefully be able to gauge the kind of benefits that you get from changing your thinking in those ways. Okay, so that is complexity. I'm sure the other one's going to come back to me. Maybe not. Number three, stress reduction. So when you are savoring, you don't want to be distracted, right? So you want to be in an area where you feel the least amount of stress. So it's not going to be, you're obviously not going to be savoring while you're cooking dinner, for example, okay? Or watching a movie. That's not the time to savor. So you need to skip the distractions and also all of those stressful concerns that you have in life. Also, savoring helps. It's a good idea when you're savoring is if you focus on social connections. Um, and savoring all often can be and seems like it is a solitary activity, but thinking about, first of all, when you're savoring, thinking about those shared relationships, that is a bigger benefit of savoring because you have got these intimate ties that you are focusing on, right? Focusing on the relationships. However, also, it is good for you to savor with another person. So savoring might include things like talking about your event with another person, again, pre-planned. It might also be sharing your event in social media. Now, I want you to be careful about that, because I know that people walk away from social media feeling worse than when they got on social media. So you need to have a sincerity there, or a balance of sincerity, I believe, as well. But sharing your experiences with another person, it actually is much more satisfying, and because the other person finds it satisfying as well. All right, and then the last one there is a balanced amount of self-monitoring. And what does that mean? That means don't try and think about it so hard, right? So when you are thinking about this, some people make it a chore. So you've got these things you're supposed to think about, and listing those kinds of things. And this is what I was going to say, that very often my students find that the event doesn't actually 100% work out like they had expected it to work out. But when you plan for savoring, what they find in the savoring is that often when they don't savor the moment, they leave themselves feeling disappointed. So if an event didn't turn out exactly the way that you hoped, because of the weather, or because somebody got sick, or because some unexplained uncontrollable event occurs, are you the type of person to not savor that event then? To say, it's a wash, didn't turn out like I wanted it to turn out. That's some of my eye. Or are you the person, I'm going to have to get something for my eye, because I'm sure there's an eyelash right there. So, are you the type of person, when an event doesn't turn out exactly the way that you hoped, that you then end it and forget about it, and therefore, in hindsight, it was a negative event, right? It was a disappointment. Are you that person? Or, and if you decide to purposefully savor, you can then turn that event. As I said, many of my students, the event doesn't turn out the way that they had hoped, but after they savor the event, they begin to think about the benefits of the event that was initially at least somewhat disappointing. So that's a true benefit in savoring as well. You can turn those negative events around into something more positive. And this isn't an exercise in overly unrealistic positive thinking. That's not what we're trying to teach you to do. I'm trying to look at my hair. There we go. That's better. You guys should watch these live videos, I'm telling you. Anyway, so purposefully engaging in this kind of thinking about an event can very easily turn your thinking around. And now think about that. Now we've talked about a person who ruminates and spends time ruminating. When you begin to savor, you've all of a sudden turned around a significant amount of your time, discretionary time that you can choose to do whatever you want with in your mind. You've turned that around into thinking about things that are more positive. So you've done that. So you've gained from that thinking and the amount of time that you're spending. And also, you are also then beginning to change your habitual ways of thinking, right? So you're not only changing the amount of time that you're spending thinking about things in positive ways, but you're changing the way that you think about things, so that you're thinking about them in ways that you are savoring, and that you are changing negative events into positive events. So teaching your brain to also repurpose, right, negative thoughts. I might asterisk that. I might copyright that. That might be my phrase. Okay, moving on. Now, we've talked about this before as well. And we see here now what we're trying to do is focus on different strategies that we can engage in that that are specific to gratitude. And so this is the gratitude visit. And the gratitude visit is individuals had looked at different interventions, and interventions typically lasted approximately a week. And then they followed these individuals along right after the intervention, 1 week, 1 month, 3 months, and 6 months after the intervention, in order to see changes in happiness levels and depression. And so this is after the gratitude visit. And the gratitude visit is where individuals wrote a letter to somebody that they were thankful for but had never properly thanked. And then they hand delivered that letter to that person and sat with that person while they read that letter, which is an important component as well, because this is a component that demonstrates that gratitude occurs outside of ourselves, right? My students have a difficult time very often sitting with the person that they give the letter to, right? Too much feelings of hubris is what they've got, right? Too many feelings, a fear of hubris, a fear of pride is what they've got. But what they're not getting is they're not getting the intimate benefit of that gratitude letter. So you need to sit there while that person reads that letter in order to get the full benefit of the gratitude. In order to clearly see that person's gratefulness. All right. And so if you remember, and I'll show you this again, we'll take a look at it again. But what we saw was the greatest increases in happiness and the greatest decreases in depression for any of the interventions, the 6 interventions, actually 5 interventions. One was a placebo. The 5 interventions that were done in this study by Seligman et al. So the one that produced the greatest increases in happiness and the greatest decreases in depression was the gratitude letter. All right. There is one more exercise as well. So you can see here that these scores on the top of the first 3 bars that occur post-test, 1 week, and 1 month after the intervention are the ones that are showing significant, as in they are not due to chance, that these are changes that they say are due to the manipulation, that are due to writing the letter, the gratitude letter. All right, the next slide here is similar, but this was an intervention that was called 3 Good Things. And in 3 Good Things, what individuals did was they wrote down every single night 3 good things. Step 1, the acknowledgement, followed by the reasons for those good things that occurred. That's an acknowledgement that this occurred outside of myself. So we see the 2-step process occurring in the 3 good things. And what do we see as results here from this reflection on things to be grateful for, right? When we write down 3 good things that occurred to us that day, they are a reflection on what we should be grateful for. And what we see there then is we don't see immediate increases in happiness, but we do see increases in happiness long term. We do, however, see immediate decreases in depression as well as decreases across the 6-month period of time. So this is extraordinary. Right now, we have advice on, number 1, how to change our levels of happiness and depression immediately, right? But we also have advice on how to change our levels of happiness and depression even 6 months later. How? Through this process of gratitude, through this process of acknowledging that I have unearned blessings that I have received, unearned goodness, and that this came from outside of me. I couldn't produce it myself. If I could produce it myself, then I would have produced it myself, right? Okay, all right. And you could play with that information in your heads and argue it in your head if you want. Hopefully not. All right, so let's talk a little bit about gratitude and grit. So first of all, we've talked about gratitude. Let's talk about what is this concept of grit. And what this concept of grit is that when we are grateful, this gratefulness leads to perseverance and determination. Gratefulness leads to perseverance and determination. And this is, according to Angela Duckworth, what we call true grit, right? You can think about this, somebody's gritty, right? Somebody's gritty. What does that mean, somebody's gritty? Well, they fall down and they get back up again, right? John Wayne was kind of a gritty character. Don't ask me to name somebody new from some kind of Marvel adventure or something like that, because I would never be able to do that. But we know characters, right? We know characters who fall down and get back up, and these are gritty characters who continue on despite setbacks. So perseverance and diligence defines individuals who are gritty. All right? Yeah. You can go out there too if you want to on the internet, and I will put that link there for you, which is a scale for true grit. But basically, it's answering, about 5 or 7 questions that are on: do you persevere in the face of adversity, in the face of obstacles? Are you the person who continues, or are you the person who gives up? So that's what we're talking about when we're talking about grit, or we also call it true grit. Do you have real grit? Is it just, or do you kind of like do enough to get along, or do you have real grit and stick-to-itiveness, right? Okay. All right. So there, what I am referencing there is what is called explanatory style. Explanatory style. Now, explanatory style is, how do you explain bad or good events? And we actually talked about explanatory style when we talked about depression and behavior. So this is just going to be a little bit of a review. But in explanatory style, what we do is we frame things as, frame events as either being our own fault, or due to us, or due to something outside of ourselves. That's a personal explanatory style, right? So is it due to me, or is it personally due to me, or not so personal, somebody outside of myself? Is it permanent? Is it stable? Does it happen all the time? Or is it unstable, where it only happens some of the time? And is it pervasive? Does it happen in all kinds of situations, or does it only happen in this circumstance? Okay, in math only. All right, so that's an explanatory style. And our explanatory style contributes to both gratitude and grit. Because when I have a pessimistic explanatory style that says that all bad things are out of my control, that they are due to me, that they are stable, that they'll always happen, and they will always happen in all circumstances of my life, this is a pessimistic explanatory style. And when our outlook is that everything is my fault, it's always going to happen, and it happens in every situation, what does that lack? Well, that's a person who has little appreciation for what they have, right? That's a person who is thankless, right? That's a person who is acknowledging bad things, but clearly not acknowledging good things because they explain things pessimistically, okay? So there's a measure that I have for you that I gave you in last week's video, episode number 5, for attribution style questionnaire. You can also take what is called, yeah, that's not going to work. Hold on. Hillary Clinton did that the other day in a interview with Rachel Maddow. Anyway, and then I just completely lose where I was. Let me think about it. When we are pessimistic, we are not only ungrateful, but we are unable to praise those things in our life that are beautiful or other people who do wonderful things. So that's part of the acknowledgement, right? We are unresponsive when things happen to us that are good. But if we are pessimistic and have this pessimistic explanatory style, we are responsive to the negative things that occur in our lives. Okay? So again, think about, do you want to be that person? Do you want to be around those people who have a dark cloud over them all the time, no matter what good happens to them, and can be described as unappreciative, that they don't acknowledge the good things, that they're unresponsive, they're unthankful, that they feel that they deserve more, right? That they are entitled to things. So the opposites of those things, right? They are entitled, that they are condemning, right? They have a few other antonyms here. I don't care for those. All right, so let's move on. So that's explanatory style. So that's explanatory style, and we can see how that is related to gratitude, which then is related to grit. If I am pessimistic, I will give up. Let's take a look at two examples that I have here. So the first example that I have here is an event where Paul found a flat tire on his bicycle. Paul found a flat tire on his bicycle when he was ready to go for a ride. Okay, so what did he say? What was the event, internal or external? Paul thinks that it was really bad luck, so this is external to him, something outside of myself, right? Was it stable or unstable? Paul doesn't think about the bike, but says his luck is always bad, so it is stable. All right, so external, stable. And Paul figures that there is nothing that he can do about it. So it is uncontrollable. So here is an example of how Paul is, his assessment or his attribution is that he decides that it is another chapter in his unlucky life. All right, so what ends up happening is that Paul ends up giving up riding his bike because he feels that it is futile, that everything is against him. Why go out for a bike ride, right? Here we have got the same situation as a flat tire, but instead what he says is that Paul's dad reminds him that tires naturally go flat over time and that Paul did not needs to check the tires. So here it was external again, right? So they say that it's external to him, that the flat tire was not his fault. It was because of tires naturally go flat, right? He remembers then, because tires naturally go flat, that this, and if he were to fill up the tire with air, that this wouldn't happen again. So it's an unstable event. And in checking the tires on a regular basis, he can control whether or not this outcome occurs. And so here we have that Paul understands that he can control his outcome. And that's what we're talking about. When we feel like we can control our outcomes, then we are less pessimistic and we're less likely to give up. Okay, this is a survey that you can take, and I have this survey on my series. You can find this in my series on self-esteem and one of the last series on mastery there. And so this is you can take this quick survey in your own time. You can stop the video and look at it. There you can see how it is scored to your right there. So take the survey and then go ahead and score it. And then find out whether or not you are entity or incremental theorist. All right, so let's talk a little bit about what that means. Remember, what I'm trying to do is I am trying to give you some strategies for building gratitude, right? So we've talked about the benefits, and we've talked about the strategies for acknowledging, and then also seeing that this comes from outside of yourself. Now what I want to talk a little bit about is just being grateful for your own talents, right? Without necessarily seeing your talents as being fixed and stable so that there's no control over them, right? So again, a different way that you think about things, yourself in this case, so that you can what's the word I'm looking for? You can really, I'm thinking of like a soup is what I'm thinking about, and putting things in a soup. You can really get some new resources is what I'm looking for. You can get some new resources, and getting these new resources, it helps change the way that you think about things. All right, let's take a look at this. So hopefully you've taken a minute to take that survey. And then let's take a look at some of the outcomes here for this survey. So, individuals who have a tendency to be entity-oriented, if you take a look at your score there, entity-oriented is individuals who believed that their talents are fixed, and that you are born with certain skills and other things you don't have skills for, and that those are fixed. The goal orientation then is that I need to perform. I either can perform in that task or I cannot perform in that task because I either have the skill or I don't have the skill. The opposite view of this, some of you may have scored higher on what they call incremental or improving yourself, so that your view of a skill is that it's not fixed, that you don't either have it or you don't. But you can improve on it over time. So what your orientation is that you can learn this skill and become proficient in this skill over time. And then what we see here is we see different than performance levels and behavior patterns. And what we are trying to do here is we're trying to master our outcomes. We're trying to master a skill. And so we see in 3 conditions that we master a skill, and only 1 condition where we don't master the skill and basically give up. It's a helpless orientation is what we call that. We see that we have this helpless orientation when we have a view of our skill as being fixed or unchangeable. This is where we believe, again, that our skills or our talents are part of our genetic makeup. And this is a danger that I point out very often in many different ways. When we believe that something is part of our biology, even something like depression, what we have a tendency to do is give up or look for the easy answer. If I can't get the easy answer, I better get fixed, right? And take a pharmaceutical. But this series is about changing our behaviors. And so if we see that, even in something like depression, that we can take steps in order to change that it is not fixed in our DNA, then we see that whether or not we are really skilled at decreasing our depression or not skilled at it. That's the high and low. What's our performance at that skill? Is it high or low? So even in something like depression, do you believe that it's fixed and part of your biology? If you do, then when you get depressed, what you're going to do is have a helpless orientation. If you, however, believe that, for example, depression is part of your DNA, but you never get depressed, well, then you obviously can master depression, right? You have mastered this idea that you have overcome depression. But if you can't overcome it and you think that it is part of your DNA, this gives you a helpless orientation that drives you and motivates you to go get help from somebody else. When you believe that something like depression is learned and that you can unlearn depression through increments of behavior, you can see here that you can perform low or high. You can never be depressed and continue to improve on your mental health by taking strategies or steps to improve your mental health. You can also fall into depression, but realize that by listening to series on depression and listening to my series on depression and behavior, reading books, listening to the experts, you can help pull yourself out without being helpless to the system, basically. Okay. So here we talked about the very first thing about gratitude and grit we talked about was explanatory style. The second one was have a growth mindset. So I can grow with things. I'm not stuck here with no choices and no control. And the last thing there that says forego immediate pleasures. So if we are to be thankful for something really wonderful, that we might have to give up the small pleasures or the small rewards that we get immediately. This is a study that is called the marshmallow study, and you can go online on YouTube and you can look up the marshmallow study and you can get some really interesting and cute videos that are short videos, and you can see what that study is all about. But basically what it is it's a study where they give individuals rewards, and those rewards or the promise of a reward. So Walter Mischel started this study with marshmallows, and so he said, here's a marshmallow, and if you eat that marshmallow, great, but if you wait until I come back, I'll give you 2 marshmallows. And so he did this with young children to see if they would wait. Well, then he followed those individuals 30 years later. And what he found was that individuals who were able to put off or delay their gratification when they were 5 years old, 5 and 6 years old, were better able to delay their gratification later on. So again, here's another strategy for you to try and learn how to delay gratification. And why do we want to learn how to delay gratification? Well, because we end up getting the bigger reward in the end, right? And so this is another strategy where we really can acknowledge and be grateful for greater things. And we can even have a part in in those greater things, right? Okay, so let's take a look at this. We've got 2 studies that Mischel took part in, or that Mischel was researching with others. So there are 2 graphs there, one for one study and then the second one for a second study. What they were looking at is whether or not, if I were to cover up the rewards, whether or not individuals would be more or less motivated to delay gratification. So you can see there on the left, on what we call the y-axis, we have delay of gratification. So how long in seconds were children able to delay their gratification? And in that first chart, we see 2 of the conditions, one of them where rewards were covered, and the other instance where rewards were not covered or they were exposed. And then if you read in the legend there that I left there for you, you can see that the colored in circles are representing what they called fun thoughts. And then you can see that the colored in squares are thoughts about the reward. And then you can see that those circles that were not colored in were no thoughts were suggested. So we're asking individuals while they are delaying gratification when the rewards were exposed or when they were covered, we were asking individuals to think about fun thoughts or thoughts about the reward or no thoughts in particular. And what we see here is when we take a look at, let's take a look at no thoughts suggested at all. So what would normally happen to us? Well, what would normally happen to us is if those rewards were out of sight, they were out of mind, and I was able to significantly delay gratification. However, if those rewards were exposed and I was able to see those rewards, that was the condition that I was least able to delay my gratification. So let's go to the condition where I was able to most delay my gratification. You can see there that in either exposed or covered rewards, I was unable to delay gratification when I was thinking about the reward. But there in the fun thoughts, isn't that interesting? Both when the rewards were exposed and when the rewards were covered, I was able to delay gratification. And why might that be? Well, if we take a look at the second graph that they have there, there they have rewards or the control objects. And the control objects were objects that were like the reward, but not the reward. So, for example, if I were to, if the reward were to be a piece of pizza, maybe a control object might be something like a bowl of spaghetti. Okay? So, I can't get the piece of pizza. That's the reward that I am delaying. But I can think about something that's not the pizza, but similar to the pizza, like spaghetti, for example. All right, so that's the control object. And then you can see there, again, they've got different dots. So they are actually, one is a square and one is a circle that is not colored in. And what these are is these are thoughts that they were asked to think about. And arousing thoughts are the colored in squares. And those arousing thoughts are things like, if I were to think about arousing thoughts about pizza, it would be it's piping hot with gooey cheese all over it and spicy tomato sauce and crunchy crust, right? All of those make me want to eat the pizza more. They are motivating thoughts. Versus abstract thoughts about the object. So an abstract thought about pizza would be that it is triangular in shape, that it is colored on the edge brown, and it's got a combination of white on top with red in the middle. Those are abstract thoughts about the object. The desirable or the reward object is what we're talking about. Let's just really quickly go. Hopefully you've been taking a look at that chart for a little while now. Let's quickly go to the condition where they had the greatest delay of gratification. And this is the greatest delay in gratification in any condition. And that was in the condition where they thought arousing thoughts, interesting, arousing thoughts about a control object. So this is very similar to the outcome of the first study where they thought about fun thoughts. Fun thoughts are similar to rewards. Fun thoughts are very rewarding. And so are arousing thoughts very rewarding. Thinking about gooey cheese is very rewarding. But I wasn't thinking about the gooey cheese from the pizza. I was thinking about gooey cheese on, or meatballs on the spaghetti, right? I was thinking about the spaghetti and the meatballs and the tangy sauce, right? So, similar to the pizza, and I was thinking arousing thoughts as well, but not arousing thoughts about the pizza. So that satisfies me in a way that helps delay gratification. So those are 3 things that you can do. Think about your explanatory style. Look at mastering or creating conditions where you can grow in mastery. And then the last one is to figure out ways to delay gratification so that the rewards that you get, that you're grateful for your hard work, grit, and perseverance, it pays off. Okay? Now, what this slide is that I'm trying to convey to you is that, just like I talked about before, when we have an anticipation for a good event coming in our future, even if it's something like savoring, what we are doing is we are creating a relationship between the something good that we're going to get and the action we took in order to get it, right? So something good is our goal. So we've gotten our goal. What was the method by which we were able to acquire that goal? That is the action. So that when we engage in an action that ends up getting us a goal, and these could be very different actions and very different goals, but it doesn't matter because association is the same. My action is going to give me something I want. This action is going to give me something I want. This other action is going to get me something different. This other action, right? The action is going to get me something I want, and that is what creates and activates dopamine, okay? And the dopaminergic system that activates structures like the nucleus accumbens and the ventral tegmental area that works to get both serotonin and dopamine pumping in your system, which is what we want. Okay, and so here now, these are some outcomes of individuals who are grateful. Okay. The very first advantage to individuals who are grateful, and these are findings from a psychological study that was done in 2015 by Krauss and colleagues. So one of the very first outcomes that they found is that individuals are more agreeable, more open, and less neurotic. This was also found by McCullough as well, and other collaborators and colleagues. So what we are finding is when individuals are taking a look at the main personality traits of which are 5 personality traits that we can think about using the acronym OCEAN or HOMES, either one. No, oceans. Openness, conscientiousness, extroversion, agreeableness, or neuroticism. Those are the 5 main areas of measurement for personality, and we can see in 3 of those, if we want a positive outcome, that gratitude will benefit us in 3 of those main 5 personality traits. Gratitude is also inversely related to depression, and it is positively related to life satisfaction, and life satisfaction has to do with how happy we are in life. Number 2, individuals who are grateful also have stronger interpersonal relationships. They are more likely to forgive other people, and they are less narcissistic. So things don't always have to be their way. Why? Because they can see the benefit in those things that they have. So giving help and helping others strengthens your relationships. Number 3, it improves optimism. And of course, we just talked about this, right? So we were just talking about pessimism and how pessimism can lead to giving up. Helplessness, hopelessness, and we talked about that last week, also contributes to feelings of depression as well. And so, if we want to feel like we have more control over our outcomes, we talked last week about attribution retraining can also help us change our optimistic view, change to a more optimistic view in life. Okay, number 4, increasing happiness. Individuals in a study in 2011 found that individuals who did the gratitude visit increased their happiness significantly. And the more gratitude we experience and express, the more situations that people find, the more situations that we find to express our gratitude. And what does that mean? Well, that means if we have more situations in which we can express our gratitude, this increases our levels of happiness. Number 5, a stronger self-control. As we see, and this is the reason why I brought up this idea of delay of gratification, that individuals who understand how this dynamic works between giving and receiving and kindness and empathy for one another, when they see how this dynamic works, they can get some control over their levels of happiness. So self-control significantly increased when individuals chose gratitude over immediate happiness, or feeling neutral, right? So to feel or to show gratitude. Number 6, we know that this leads to better physical and mental health. Although we will see that there has been different studies that have been conflicting about this, it all depends on the measure. And what we're finding is that individuals who are more grateful have reduced inflammation. And we know that inflammation is associated with every major disease that we have. These individuals also have improved sleep, and that has been found over and over again. So, a suggestion might be to write down 3 good things before you go to bed at night. And this has helped individuals sleep better and also has changed their moods. It also reduced their symptoms of heart failure after only 8 weeks of practicing these kinds of gratitude interventions. Number 7, an overall better life. So individuals who, again, are taking surveys in life satisfaction, who have written down benefits of gratitude, that these individuals, as they increase their benefits in gratitude, have demonstrated increase in overall life satisfaction. So these two things co-vary. As individuals see the benefits of gratitude increase, or the benefits that they have, the blessings that they have increase, they also see increases in better overall life, more optimism, more social connections, more happiness. So overall better life. Number 8, stronger athleticism. And so here, individuals actually are more willing to engage in those behaviors that are healthy behaviors. They look up foods that they should eat and foods that they should stay away from. They are aware of the different research on supplements and what are good supplements and what aren't. They are aware of ways that they can decrease depression and increase things like levels of happiness. They are aware of the relationship between stress and health. And so individuals who are more grateful actually are stronger. They specifically looked at adolescents who were more grateful in life, were also tended to be more satisfied, and also had higher levels of self-esteem. Yeah, and coaches who applied some of these gratitude visits and strategies for gratitude found that they had their athletes actually increase in their performance. So this was a study that was done at the University of California, Berkeley, by McKeever. And so I'll put that also in the literature that you can take a look at. All right, let's see. I think that that's it. So thank you for joining me on this Sunday after Thanksgiving. And yeah, thanks if you stuck with me through this whole thing. And if not, you can watch this, of course, on YouTube, and you can find it on my YouTube channel. So please like, subscribe, and share. And also, please take a look at my LinkedIn account, because LinkedIn is actually where I end up posting a few other more I don't know, probably more current ideas on health and what is going on in our healthcare system. And I could really use some support on some of these ideas if you support those ideas. So visit my LinkedIn page. And then this brings me to today's question of the week. Okay, and today's question of the week is this. There's a video that I put out on LinkedIn, and this video is of a nurse in Texas, and some of you have already heard about this, because some of you, I heard about it and talked to me about it as well. And I believe she's a nurse in Houston, Texas. And the video was about how she lost her privileges to be able to practice at the hospital, the local hospital. And this was apparently, it seemed to be because they did not like the way that she was handling her COVID patients, which she claims to never have had a patient even hospitalized, much less die. They objected to her strategies in dealing with these COVID patients, and likely their concerns about misleading individuals regarding vaccinations. And they claimed that this on LinkedIn was misinformation. And so, question of today is, take a look at that LinkedIn video. Take a look at that video. which you likely can't see in my LinkedIn account. There were almost 200 hits on that, and then it was removed. And so take a look at that report from that nurse if you can still find it and get information. And I would like to know what was the misinformation in that posting on LinkedIn, and heads up to be concerned about this kind of censor about this kind of censor about this kind of censorship that we're seeing. All right, this is Dr. Annette Feravich. Thank you for joining me. I am with Healthy Mind, Body, Spirit. And also, please check out my website, because I have updated my website. You can see Black Friday specials, and also I will be updating my website with other things on my home page so that it gets you to want to look at my home page instead of other websites for information. So you'll come here, you can see the videos that I have, but also I will have other things up there as soon as I can get organized, to have recipes up there and some good information, other health information available to you. So please check out my website as I continue to update that information. And remember to like and subscribe to my YouTube videos, and visit me on my website and on my LinkedIn page. All right. Thank you very much for joining me.